Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today we're going to talk a little NFL draft. Draft is on Thursday, the 29th already, so we're almost there. So we thought we'd go through some of the top players at each position and just what we think would be first what we think about them, what we think would be the best landing spot, where we think they're going to go, all that good stuff. So let's just start off at quarterback, because this year there actually is a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be going up near the top, and it's more than normal. So it looks like right now the top three picks are probably all going to be quarterbacks at this point. Trevor Lawrence will go number one, right, to Jacksonville. That's a given. It kind of looks like Zach Wilson is going to go number two to the Jets. That's most likely the case. And then number three is where it goes up in the air, where the Niners are picking. They're going to get a quarterback, but it's either Mac Jones or Justin Fields. So, well, that one right there, I mean, Justin Fields, man, that guy was good at Ohio State. Really good. I feel like I don't know what's happening with him. He's fallen down the board a little bit. And I feel like he'd be a good fantasy quarterback, but I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do there. I think this could be a good position for a quarterback. The other two are bad. I don't like those positions right now. Trevor Lawrence at Jacksonville, do we really expect him to do much this year?
I think he'd be okay.
And he has a terrible running back. He needs to draft, so he needs to draft a better one.
I mean, yeah, no matter any of these quarterbacks, they're going to be drafted to bad teams. They're definitely not a viable option in order to pick as your number one QB in fantasy. It just doesn't work like that. Doesn't mean that later on in the year or something you can't use them. That would be I'll be quite honest. I'm actually more interested in I'm sorry, I keep going back to Justin Fields. But no, forgive me. What quarterbacks are we talking about?
So yeah, Lawrence number one. Zach Wilson going.
Zach
to the
Wilson,
Jets.
thank you.
Yeah.
The Jets have done enough where I'm kind of intrigued by that. It's weird. Lawrence is a very good prospect. And the guy from BYU, I feel like he's definitely shot up, but I feel like Lawrence was already kind of deemed that number one guy, that there wasn't really a discussion. I'm almost more interested in him going to the Jets. And, you have a couple of wide receivers. It feels like they're going in the right direction. I almost wonder if he's going to have more to work with, and he'll be more of a viable option for fantasy because he has a very strong arm. You have to air it out. You finally got some weapons where you can stretch the field. And on the other end, I do wonder if the Jaguars will be a little more conscious of trying to put him in right positions and not really stretch his ability right away, like get him more comfortable. I wonder if he'll be more, the Jets will just throw him in and let him fly. So I'm a little more interested in Zach Wilson rather than Lawrence this year.
For this year, probably, yeah.
I'll be honest, I worry about the Jets long term because he never, it has not gone well. It'd be like if Detroit drafted someone, I'd be like, that's not ever going to go well.
Right. Yeah.
But I kind of like Zach Wilson as a prospect better than Lawrence, to be honest, just from, and I'm not a pro watching, tape and predicting that, because he has a release that's a little quicker. It just looks like some of the arm talent is a lot more like what I've seen in the NFL rather than Lawrence, who I think is just a little more polished.
Right. So those are going to be the first two. That's what the picks are going to be. Number three is the Niners. They're still choosing between Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and I mean, honestly, they're still looking at Trey Lance as well from North Dakota State or whatever. They're still looking at him too. The early consensus seemed like it was going to be Mac Jones, seemed to be their guy, but there's people saying Justin Fields. I don't know. It could go either way between those two guys. I don't know what the right pick is. Honestly,
it could even be Lance. I think it'll be Mac Jones, but it wouldn't surprise me because if you're going up to number three, you fell in love with a guy, right?
Yep.
So you're not taking a shot, like a chance that you might miss out on him. But at that point, you could really look at each one of these and say, really, you believe in that guy that much? Like Mac Jones does not seem like a game-changing quarterback,
he doesn't.
Right?
I mean, you look at it. He threw for 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 4 picks last year. It was a really good year.
Yeah, very good.
But he was throwing to Devontae Smith. Not many other college quarterbacks get to do that.
And Waddle. I mean,
he was on the best team. Of course he's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a given. But I don't know. These people know more than I do. I know what I saw from Justin Fields though too. Like that guy was.
Well, Lance is he's the one that you throw up in the air and you're kind of like, what if?
I don't know what he is.
What if Lynch or someone in the San Francisco office just falls in love with him and they say, wow, he has all the tools to become something special. And they even said that they weren't going to necessarily trade Garoppolo. That is just something a team usually says doesn't usually hold up. So I don't know. I don't know which way they're going to go with it. My assumption is Mac Jones, just to get a guy that they really like because he's accurate and he can manage the game well enough.
Yep.
But even if San Fran is a different landing spot. They're primed to be very good right away. Does that change your mindset on whoever that quarterback is?
Not really. I don't think.
Can't imagine
some players could turn
numbers
out and be good, like Justin Herbert last year, and Hurts at the end of the year. But that's just not. You just don't know when it's going to happen. I just don't want to deal with that. So if that goes, let's say if it goes those three, there's going to be three quarterbacks there, right? The other two, whoever the two aren't, probably it's either Fields or Jones and then Lance. Who knows where they're going to go? But the Patriots could be an interesting one. Patriots should pick one of these guys at 15 if they don't trade up. They definitely should be looking at a quarterback. Not really sure who else. Somebody else will jump into there and get one of these guys. These are the top 5 guys. I think they're all going to go in the top in the first round. I don't know who's going to trade up and get them. Someone's going to, and they're all going to go. But fantasy wise, there's not going to be a situation where I'm going to be like, yep, got to get this guy. It's just not going to happen. So might as well talk about running backs. We got some running backs here. The running backs this year I think are they're decent. I don't think they're necessarily special, right? I don't know how you're feeling.
No, I agree.
It's all going to be about landing spot. 100%. It's not going to be their talent alone that makes me want one of these guys. And right now it looks like Najee Harris is probably the top one, and Travis Etienne is probably number 2. That's probably how it's going to go. And it depends. I think it seems like Harris is going to go against ahead of Etienne, but that doesn't mean anything. Last year, did we think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the number 1 running back pick? No one thought that. So it's all going to depend on landing spot for especially these guys. One of the landing spots I could see in the first round, if there's a first round one, I only think one of these guys can be picked in the first round, to be honest. And I could see the Steelers getting somebody, right? They don't have James Conner anymore. It is like Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland. We've talked about that. If they don't, I think I could see the Steelers getting a running back, getting Najee Harris. Okay, if the Steelers were the team to get one of these guys, what's that? What do you do with that? How do you feel about that then right away?
They immediately they become a viable option. I'm trying to think of how high they would springboard. Obviously you're the top 30. You still have to assume that they're going to beat out whoever it is. They got Anthony McFarland last year. It seems like they like Snell, so who knows if they're going to be the lone back. But if someone like Pittsburgh got and it wouldn't even matter which one of these guys, to be quite honest.
It wouldn't make a difference to me.
If it's one of the top 4, I would say 5 maybe, then you're like, yeah, okay, they'd be in the top 30 discussion, and then I would have to kind of wait and see. My initial reaction was to put them probably in the low 20s. That would be kind of my initial reaction.
To start. Just because I think they're okay players. I don't love these players.
No. And I think with the Pittsburgh team, it doesn't necessarily, I like Etienne better than I like Najee Harris. I'm very skeptical about Harris only because we've seen this story before where the large running back from a dominant team that runs over people looks really good, and then he gets to the NFL, and you're kind of like, he's kind of like everyone else.
Yep.
So Trent Richardson comes to mind. He did have one very good productive year, so it doesn't take anything away from him. But Najee Harris is huge. He is a giant man. 6'2", 230. Coming out of Alabama, who the gaping holes he was able to run through is not going to be NFL. Right. But if you're in a pounded out offense like Pittsburgh can be, then he would do just fine. Even if I like Etienne better or whoever, that one completely doesn't matter play style. True. So yeah, that would be great. But if he goes to a team that is not all that great, I would probably be holding off on Najee Harris. I'm very skeptical. I think a lot of these guys, everyone but Etienne, I think it is completely up to where they land. the person that lands on the better team is going to get a better rating for me.
Yeah, it's going to be 100% the case. So some of the teams that could use a running back, obviously Steelers are there. And then we're looking maybe in the second round who might go get one. The Jets, honestly, the Jets could go get a running back. They probably need one. So I could see the other one of these two guys going to the Jets early in the second. And they'll love it for fantasy.
Yeah, that would kill my projection of him.
Yeah, I don't love that. Nothing about that interests me. So yeah, I'm not going to think that's great. So I hope that's not the case. There are other teams that could use a running back, but no one is like maybe Miami if they don't love Myles Gaskin as the number one, which I don't think they do. Myles Gaskin to me is not the main back. He was fine last year, but do you want to rely on Myles Gaskin? I don't, even after what he showed.
You could easily get one of these guys to be a double-headed kind of, or the second back.
Miami picks early in the second. They could go after him, one of these guys if they fell to him. And, I mean, these are the main two. So after that, it goes down to like Javonte Williams from North Carolina, who we got a couple North Carolina guys actually that are
Michael Carter.
Yeah, so they're both interesting. I think they're okay, but I don't really. I mean, Williams averaged what? I can't remember. It was like 7.3 yards a carry last year. Pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive numbers, but last year's a weird year, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, the fact that Trey Sermon, he's a good back, right? But I don't know what he's going to be ranked, like the 6th, 7th, something like that, running back. He is kind of a strange one where you're kind of like, he's a very big running back, and I could understand someone picking him late in the draft, say, but I can't really get too excited about any one of these guys. We're so used to seeing one primetime running back come out and say who's going to get him. This year, I don't see that one, and especially if you're doing dynasty, rookie drafts, things of that nature, I do not see a clear-cut number 1 pick, number 5, any of that. Usually I can be like, okay, well, the first 5 picks are set in stone. You know exactly who you're going to go with. You kind of have to go off of need. And if you're talking about dynasty, I think this, in my personal opinion, I do like some of the wide receivers. We'll eventually get to Pitts, who is an interesting prospect for a longer term thing. But I would actually, it might be the year to trade out of it and try to get a guaranteed, player you can actually use, because I don't know what is going to happen with any of these players, because I think that they're all good, but I don't see greatness in any of them.
I don't, and I can't get too excited about a lot of these guys. I just can't, and it's all going to be landing spot, but I don't know how many landing spots there are for these people right now. I really don't. I mean, like I said, there's the Steelers is a good one. The Jets is one, but it's not a good one, I would say. Like I said, Miami maybe. I don't know, man. I don't love these situations for these players this year, and I don't know it's going to play out very well. Any other guys that like stand out to you that you actually like in this list at all? Down the list,
Etienne is the one that I like the most. I do actually. I'd like Michael Carter from North Carolina, but I don't. Once again, it's kind of it's a hard one to determine, because him and Javonte Williams were on the same team and they're kind of doing the same thing. So you wonder if it's just a situation. I actually do like is it Chuba or Chuba?
Chuba. I like, yes.
I actually like him. Yes. I watched tape on him just because he was an interesting player. So people were, kind of giving him fanfare over the year. I like his style of play. He might be an interesting one later in the draft, but once again, all depend on what team he goes to and are they going to use that type of running back.
I feel like he was a bigger prospect before this season, and it didn't, like, for some reason, he's fallen down. You can see why. Like, he played in 7 games, so he averaged 4.7 yards a carry this year. The 2 years before that, like his sophomore year, the guy ran for over 2,000 yards on 6.4 yards per carry. He was very impressive. This past year, not the same. That's why he's dropped down. I think there's something, this guy can play. He can play. I think somebody could get a steal here. If he goes to the right, again, if he's one that goes later and goes to a right situation, I feel good about that. I'd actually like that pick. And then, there's some interesting players down here, like Demetric Felton from UCLA. He's an interesting, like, running back, wide receiver, hybrid type player again, like we've seen, like Antonio Gibson. Some of the NFL scouts they've listed him as a wide receiver, but he was a running back. He's kind of undersized, but we'll see, what is he going to do? He's one of these guys. He had 132 carries last year, but caught the ball 22 times. The year before, he caught 55 balls and only had 86 carries. He's one of those interesting guys.
They scare you, right? Because there's two ways you can go with it. Where either you're going to be an Alvin Kamara, you're going to be a Antonio Gibson, or you're going to be the guy that we completely forget about in a year because you don't get enough touches in general, and you're handcuffed because you're not one or the other, and the team you go to doesn't know how to use you.
And the thing is, he's interesting, but again, like we look at like Alvin Kamara and we looked at like what he was doing with his carries, it was ridiculous, right? Fell in 5.1 yards a carry, 7.2 yards a catch last year. That's not great, but he's just interesting. He's an interesting player. He's listed as what, 5'10", 200. So is he really that?
Yeah, I was gonna say the undersized guy, 5'10", he's like 5'8", probably. The undersized guy that is a speedster. I kind of feel that way about. And it's kind of funny. You're not really sure once again because Kenneth.
I was just gonna say Kenny Gainwell. We've completely skipped over.
He's an interesting one. I think the talent is there, but I do wonder. It's going to be a lot of where you go because I think he kind of falls in that same category. He's definitely a pure running back. But they say 5'11", 191, but I think that feels pumped up because he looks smaller on the field. I think he does have kind of like the explosiveness in order to keep defensive honest. He might be an interesting one as well. But right now he's ranked like fifth-ish.
Kenny Gainwell is interesting because he didn't play in 2020. He opted out of the year. Yeah. He played in 2019 and he ran for, he was actually going to be he would have been like a redshirt freshman that year, but ran for over 1,400 yards, 6.3 yards a carry, caught the ball 51 times for 610 yards. That is nice. And he was the reason why Antonio Gibson didn't get a lot of carries.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like an Alvin Kamara kind of thing, right?
Like I really do like Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah. I'll be very interested to see how he actually grades out in the, in everything else leading up to the draft, because I do wonder if teams are going to back off. They have a very strange thing about size, especially for running back. Yep. And I feel like the numbers I'm looking at right now are pumped up because 5'11", 190 is, you're a very skinny running back because, Michael Carter from North Carolina is like 5'8", but he's over 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. So it's a very different one. Can you hold up in the NFL game? There's a lot of questions that come along with it. So you do wonder if he'll fall. And once again, the farther you fall, the more opportunity you have to be on a team that can use you properly. So he's a very interesting prospect.
I do like him. It's funny thing looking at like Felton, he's that same kind of, say he's that whatever type player. Hard to, look at his numbers. Hard to compare to Antonio Gibson. Just pulled that up. Antonio Gibson had 33 carries that year. He averaged 11.2 yards per carry. Caught the ball 38 times for 735 yards, 19.3 yards per catch.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers don't justify it.
Antonio Gibson had 71 touches for 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. Of course he was going to be good.
Yeah, you see why.
But I like Kenny Gainwell. Actually, I really do like him as well. I think, he could be an interesting. I think he could be a late second. I think there's going to be some guys in the second round, and he's one that could go there. It depends on who ends up, wanting to get player. Maybe, I don't know, do the Chargers go after somebody? They just have Eckler. They really don't have another guy.
It'd be great to have another guy that could catch the ball as well. If they moved in that direction, because once again, it's hard to say with Herbert only having 1 year under his belt.
Yep.
Because they were going in that direction with Eckler. But if you could have him and another guy that can mirror his skill set, you don't have to completely go away from that game plan if he gets hurt, which he did last year. So that would be a very interesting landing place for him.
And what if like the Steelers pass on the first round and go like later second round, and then if the Steelers honestly get one of these running backs, I still like them almost the same as I would before.
Like we said, I think I'd be surprised. I feel like they're going to get a pounded out kind of back, but any running back that goes there that you think is better than whoever they have right now, that would be the best location.
Yep. There's not a lot of spots I love, but Steelers. I don't even know if I love the Steelers spot. I like the Steelers spot, but.
At least there's a spot open on a good team that they'll be able to run the ball. Yep. Like the Jets, we don't actually know that yet.
That's true. All right. So those are just some of the running backs. Again, I don't love it this year, but somebody's going to land in the right spot, right, and be a solid pick. All right. Wide receivers. There's actually some talent here. And what order they're going to go in, though, is still kind of up in the air. And I think there's going to be, 2 of them in the top 10 probably. And it looks, from what, most of the things, it's probably Jamar Chase. Is it Devontae Smith or is it Jalen Waddle? Like, which one is it? Who's going to go here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I see this play out every year in the NFL. It'll probably end up being Jalen Waddle when it shouldn't be. It should be Devontae Smith. We'll see if that holds true because speed just, they say it every year, but you can't teach speed. Yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't usually pan out the way that they want it to. I mean, the easiest ones to point at is obviously last year, the Raiders, we're still thinking that he can obviously pan out, right?
Ruggs.
Yeah, thank you. Henry Ruggs. He was incredibly fast. Yep. And then the other one was I'm doing terrible at this today, but I'm going to say Smith. Bengals. Ross. John Ross. Thank you. Yeah, so John Ross, who just blistering 40 speed, and then they drafted him really high. He couldn't stay healthy. He just wasn't the wide receiver that you need in the NFL.
Every year.
So, they keep reaching for players that they think are going to turn into, Hill, and they're just not a complete player quite yet. So, I mean, you know what? He is very, very fast. Got to give it to him. But I think Jamar Chase will go number 1. Devontae Smith will go number 2. And I really, wherever those two land, I don't know if you're on the same page as me, but I think both of them will be very successful.
Well, I mean, so it goes early on. The Dolphins are a possibility in the first round. And the Lions are a possibility in the first round.
Okay, that is possible. Well, actually, no, I'd be fine if one of them go to the Lions. First of all, I don't want,
they become their number 1.
Yeah, I personally don't want the Lions to pick a wide receiver.
I think they
but
might.
That's just me
as
a fan. If they do pick one of them, I think that they automatically are in line to get a ton of targets. They're going to be able to be on the field. They're going to be able to learn very quickly. Both of those guys, Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith, are very polished already. They're incredibly good. I think they're ready to play NFL right now. So even if it is on a bad team, I think the Miami situation is a little harder because you do have other mouths that you have to feed, and you have Tua.
Yep.
2 things that I'm not exactly sure, but if one did go to Detroit, they would rocket up my draft board quite a bit.
Some other possibilities for these 3 main guys, obviously, are Carolina could go after a wide receiver. I don't know if they would. They got Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, but the Eagles for sure.
Yeah.
The Eagles at 12. If one of these 3 falls to them, I feel like the Eagles are going to get a wide receiver. I mean, they need somebody. They need somebody more than most, I feel like. And I think that would be Jalen Hurts, I guess we still don't know what he is as a thrower. That's the problem with one of these players going there, but I think they need to surround him with that 100%. Like they absolutely need to. So
yeah, and the other reason it'll be very interesting to see what happens in this one because yes, I would say that there's 3-4 guys that are probably a little better than the other ones, but this does go pretty deep.
Oh yeah.
And the landing spot is gonna be very interesting. You have Terrace Marshall. He's the taller guy, 6'3". He was from LSU. We've seen how many different wide receivers they've been able to produce. Tony from Florida is a legit playmaker. Even Elijah Wood from Ole Miss, who is actually further down there. Ole Miss has been putting out. How many wide receivers that have come from there in the past 5 years has been pretty impressive. So I do wonder, someone like the Lions or any team like that, unless you desperately need a playmaker and you have your heart set on one of these guys, I feel like you're going to wait until the second, third rounds and then pick up another one of these guys because I think they're a very valuable asset. Maybe not quite as the level of Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith, but I don't know about how much of a fall off there is.
Marshall, he's interesting. 23 touchdowns and 94 catches the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. And he's,
it's really
and
good.
He's only 20 years old right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of youth, and
Bateman from Minnesota is another good one. I'm actually intrigued. This is I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm intrigued by Rondale Moore from Purdue. He's undersized, big time.
You're going for
He's 5'7".
Yeah.
He ran a 4.29, I think it was. Okay. I'm getting blinded by this. We just talked about Ross and Ruggs and all that stuff. But the last 2 years, so he's only played 7 games the last 2 years, Moore has. I mean, that's the red flag. His freshman year, he had 114 catches. His freshman year, 114 catches for 1,258 yards, 12 touchdowns. He ran the ball 21 times for 211 or 213 yards, 10.1 yards per carry. I like Rondale Moore. I don't know what a team would do with him, though.
Like he scares me. He is a John Ross incarnate.
But I think they're going to use. They would use him in just more ways. They could definitely use. But he's 5'7".
You could, but anytime you
5'7",
have
175 or something like that
for fantasy, and it will help if you have a good team already. That kind of weapon does help you because you can switch it up. You can give different looks. You can scatter the defense. That's great for fantasy. The speed guys, unless you're a legit guy that's going to be out there and playing a lot, I very much back away from them because they turn into a gadget player. Same reason I didn't want to draft Henry Ruggs last year because you're kind of like, what will he be? Is it all his thing, like his whole, all he does is run straight up, straight down the sideline and try to, take the top off the defense? Are you going to, it doesn't matter if you hand the ball off to him twice and then throw it to him twice. Like that's not going to get it done. So
man, I'm gonna fall in love with Rondale Moore. I'm telling you, this is what's gonna happen.
I can't imagine. I mean, what team would he have to go to for that to fit though?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know what team that is.
I don't see it happening.
Man,
who do you think this is? Stepping away from that, who do you think is who do you like, Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase better, or do you like one of the other guys more? And where do you think the best landing spot for any one of these wide receivers? Is there a number one?
I don't think there's a number one because I think the main guys, I think it's really Miami, Detroit, Philly. Maybe it's Miami just because maybe Tua is something. I don't think, honestly, I have my doubts about Tua, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's good. If he is, and maybe they get, one of the Alabama receivers could go back with him, but I think Jamar Chase is the best of the bunch. And I think Miami's probably the best spot out of, if I look at those like three spots, those three teams. Detroit, the problem with Detroit is Jared Goff's not the long-term answer. I don't feel like Jared Goff's the long-term answer. And I know the Lions aren't going to go pick quarterback here, but man, if one of these quarterbacks fell the Lions at this spot, like I have a hard time with them passing up a quarterback, but they're going to. They should. I just don't think Jared Goff's the guy. But
probably not, but
I guess, okay, with Jared Goff, maybe
good
maybe
enough. Is he better than Tua right now?
But I think if we look at just fantasy perspective, maybe Goff is the better fit for year one.
Without a doubt. Also, okay, first of all, we already know that three quarterbacks, and this is going off the rails into Detroit, but we already know the top three guys. So you're going to say, which one would
Justin
you take?
Fields, though, and he's sitting there at 7.
I don't know. Justin Fields was amazing in college. He was very good. But how many times have we seen a college, like an amazing quarterback in college, especially on a very good team that has very good talent, not live up to the hype? And I'm not saying he's the same thing as like a Haskins, but you do see a lot of running quarterbacks that have strong arms that just don't cut it.
True.
So it scares me to take a guy that you're not sure of.
Let's get a receiver, I guess.
No, I would. I swear to God, I'm going to lose my mind. Dude, I don't care who the Lions get, and this goes for any team that's rebuilding. First of all, I would not start with a quarterback unless you're halfway through your rebuild at least.
Get some more to it.
But you take a guaranteed player, like you take a left tackle that is just a guaranteed guy, which there's obviously a very good one in this draft.
That probably won't fall to them.
Probably not. Yeah. But if he falls, you take him. If not, if you can get a safety or an edge rusher, anything that is going to play as much as they possibly can for the next 10 years, that's what you got to take.
It's not going to happen.
And again, it's like I've heard Detroit being linked, and once again to any bad team, being linked to the next guy we should talk about, which is tight end.
Yeah, move over. Just the one tight end we're going to talk about probably.
Yeah, just
the
one.
Other ones, anybody else other than Kyle Pitts is going to be not worthwhile for fantasy next year. I don't care where they go. Kyle Pitts is a different player. So, 6'6", 240. This guy's he's big and he's good. And what if he goes number 4 to Atlanta? That is an interesting spot I think. If he goes to Atlanta and he's playing there with Matt Ryan, Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts out there.
And Hurst.
And Hurst is the number 2 tight end at that point. That's an interesting spot.
You could show a lot of different formations. It would be interesting. Their defense has not been good. They have to keep throwing. I would have it would not be probably, I don't know if it would be my number 1 location for Pitts to fall to, but it wouldn't be bad. He would definitely be the guy right away, or he would play a lot. Here's the one. We talk about this a lot because Kyle Pitts has been amped up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks that he's going to be a generational talent. He has all the building blocks physically. He has it. But in very few cases has a tight end ever come out and immediately made a fantasy impact on year one. Are you willing to take a shot at this guy? If he lands in Atlanta, I mean, where does he rank for you all? Like
top 10. I'm probably 10. I don't like the tight ends. I've looked at my list and I don't like where it gets to the end of the 10 and at end of top 10. Shoot, let me pull this up right here. I'll show you what I actually did a tight end ranking, and I put Kyle Pitts 10 already on my ranks. So my ranks were like, okay, Travis Kelce's there, Kittle's up there, Darren Waller's going to be up there, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, probably Dallas Goedert without Ertz around. He's going to be up there. And then you're looking at like Robert Tanyan, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, and that's 9 guys. And you're already to those players. After that, and Hunter Henry, but he's with, and Jonnu Smith, they're there. I don't know. Kyle Pitts can easily get up in that top 10 for me. And honestly, some of the Atlanta, I think is a good one. What about the other possible spots are going to be that 4, 5, 6. It's going to be Atlanta, Cincinnati, Miami. Those are all the spots that he could go. Cincinnati's interesting. I'd like to see him with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I think that would be a better landing spot.
But I don't think I think they're going to go tackle there and protect Joe Burrow. Especially after,
you should
blowing up his knee,
hurting him the first year.
I think they will go tackle there. But if for some reason they don't have that option, I think they can go Pitts, and that'd be a good
Or they
pick.
think they can get a tackle or another lineman later on in the draft.
So Pitts, and he'll be a top 10 for me.
There are a lot of offensive linemen in this draft as well.
Yep. Miami's the interesting. There's talk of that, but how would that work with Gesicki? Maybe just go 2 tight ends, and that's a good 2 tight end group, though.
It might be more into his skill set too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Atlanta and Cincinnati would be good spots. I don't know if he gets maybe he goes to Detroit. Maybe he falls down, and then it's him and Hawkinson. That's interesting. It's going to happen.
I mean, he would have to hit year one. It scares me so much.
Or does he somehow fall to 8 and go to Carolina? Then he's with Darnold. Ugh.
That'd be a bad landing spot.
Don't like
for
that.
him.
He's not gonna fall that far. He's not.
I don't think so either, but we'll see because
I don't know.
a lot of teams have a lot of other needs, and tight end is
But he's a special one.
He is, and people are really getting excited about him. So
but
I could see him jump up.
We've seen some special ones in the past, and they don't always.
They don't, and they don't hit right away.
I mean, Vernon Davis was special.
He was, and he didn't do anything for the first couple of years.
And he was good, but he never lived up. There's the top 10 tight ends have never really. I don't feel like they ever quite live up to it.
No,
and Hawkinson, he's taking his time.
Yeah, and to be fair, Vernon Davis as well did play over 10 years ago when the tight end game was a bit different. But yeah, it's very difficult, and even for me, it becomes very hard. So even if he does land on Cincinnati or Atlanta, I would have a hard time drafting him still. For fantasy, even if he was, because you're probably right. He probably goes up into the top 10, but because he's an interesting name, you wonder if he starts shifting up more and more. And once again, I know that there's other names down here. It's going to be very interesting to see how New England handles Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Irv Smith Jr., we've both talked about it. We think he is going to have a breakout year. We really like him. Logan Thomas on Washington is going to be down there as well. He's very interesting. He had a good year last year. And then even the other ones you're talking about, it's funny to say, but Robert Tanyan is one that
he's a top 10 guy probably.
I'm just not that interested in.
I'm not either.
Noah Fant did show flashes. But
I don't like Drew Lock. I don't think Drew Lock's anything.
Yeah, but you can get him for nothing. So it's like when you're picking between all of these guys, are you going to go for Pitts? And you can always, I guess, drop him or hold on to him and go for someone else. But even Gronk, Gronk is being very underrated at the moment because everyone's kind of waiting and seeing.
Yep.
But he's very low. Evan Ingram, there's a lot of people that are going to be in that very
I still
area.
might take the chance on Pitts.
I get it because he's going to be exciting, but that's also why I'm kind of thinking I'm never going to reach up to get him.
Yeah, I'm not going to reach to get him, but maybe somebody probably. But people will.
Here's the one thing. He's the one guy that I do want to talk about as a dynasty pick. Yeah. How high does he go in dynasty? Because that's a whole different one.
That's interesting because I think he still goes down a little further because those wide receivers, you're going to want those 3 receivers. And Etienne and Harris are going to go up there probably too. That's probably your top 5. Most likely.
Most likely, but that tight end will be shortly after. I mean, what, he's going to be in the top 7, you think?
If it's just a single quarterback league, you're not going to be – the quarterbacks, you just wait. But somebody could go Lawrence. But I'd personally wait. But I think worst case, Pitts could go 6 in one of those.
He's going to be high. It's going to be one of the higher tight end picks.
That'd be worst case, I feel like, honestly.
But even with this, I mean, we talked about it, though. We're not over the moon on any running back.
No, I'm just not.
Wide receivers, I think the top 2 are guaranteed. I think Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase should be ahead of him. Yeah. There's other wide receivers that people could fall in love with, but I could see in a lot of them where, you know, especially for people, it's hard for people to find tight ends in Dynasty, right?
Well, in the wide receivers, we like all those wide receivers, but they've, like you said, wide receivers in the first round, it's not a sure thing. It's not at all a sure thing. We go back to the John Ross, Corey Davis, Mike Williams year. Top 10, 3 in the top 10.
Yeah, none of
them have hit.
Yeah.
Before that, you had like Kevin White. Remember Kevin White?
I mean, you do.
Yeah, I do.
You drafted him in the Dynasty.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, you have other draft classes where the top 10 all hit. I mean, we had Mike Evans and Odell and, and Jarvis Landry. I think all 3 of those were in the same.
And you get those guys, but yeah, so.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, I could see Pitts going, I would just say, I think he'll go in the top 5.
He feels like more of a sure thing than anybody.
And I think people are willing, like with other guys not being a sure thing, you're willing to take that risk. Well, because you also, you're getting him for a long period of time. He doesn't have to hit the first year.
Well, and this is going to depend, too, on some of these other receivers down the board a little bit, even like a Marshall or whoever. Landing spot is going to be so key, like Justin Jefferson last year with Minnesota. Once he went to Minnesota, it was just like, this is perfect.
Yeah, we're all in.
Like, it was perfect. It was just perfect. He might not have been, he wasn't one of those top guys, with CeeDee Lamb and, all them guys. But once he got the spot, you're like, of course, this is going to work. And it did. But there'll be a guy like that.
Oh, there, I think with the talent, and once again, I think there's a lot of talent in wide receiver, and I'm still not sure who's who because of the weirdness of last year. But there will be a couple of different guys that will go to a spot and you say, he only has one guy to beat out and that guy's not very good. Or it's a vacant spot. He automatically gets to be the 3rd wide receiver and this team throws a lot. There's going to be some guys that you just know will carve out a role.
Yeah. Well, and on our next episode, we'll figure these out, I guess, and figure out if Rondell Moore goes into the right spot. That's my guy.
Rondell Moore.
I'm just intrigued by him. He hasn't played in like 2 years, but essentially, man, I guess maybe 5'7" doesn't quite work. But it worked for Tyreek Hill. That dude's miniature.
He is. I mean, who knows? But he feels like a different type of player. No one's been able to copy the success he's had.
It's true. But all right, that will do it for today. Next time, we'll be back with a little draft recap and see where these players actually landed. And that's going to be the whole key. It's all about landing spot. But that'll be it. Talk to you guys next time.